Game loaded.
Hi, and welcome to Additional Lessons Learned with your host, Rafael Pinheiro. You of the PC Master Race. You who feel shafted every time you see a glorious demo for the latest AAA game, only to realize that the actual game is poorer, slower, deficient. Maybe it's a bad PC port, or it might be because we have to slub to the level of those poor console players who are stuck with their black closed boxes, with no upgrades and no hope of escape for years to come. Why must the PC Master Race suffer at the hands and chains of their inferiors? Why? Why do we still live in a world of downgrades and console parity? Very good question. The downgrades are real. The actual console parity, it's more of a myth. Now, there are two reasons why you have this phenomenon. The first one is simple. What you see in a demo is supposed to get you excited for the product, and therefore probably is running whatever rig, created by some kind of Frankenstein of a developer in their basement could come up with at the last minute, and therefore the actual product when it's sold has to perform well across the board, and therefore some sacrifices are made. But the other one is not really PC/console parity. It's more about what I like to call the lowest common denominator. History time, children. We go back to the year 2000 to 2001. Those are 2 years, but bear with me. Back then, the Dreamcast became just a dream. But the Sony PlayStation and the new Xbox OC, that's original console for those OGs out there, were now the new and current technology in console. And something happened. These machines could, for the first time, approach the capabilities of PC when it came to most games. They could not surpass them. After all, they're closed systems. And if you can find the parts and the actual drivers and to cram into your preferred box, whether laptop or desktop, you can come up with something better. Of course, and if you have the money. So, clearly, if you wanted to sell an economical console to the masses, you couldn't just put the latest and greatest technology in it, as Sony learned with the PlayStation 3. So, they could close the gap with PC. Gone were the days where the FPS and the Western RPG were the sole domain of PCs. RTSs and MMOs were still beyond reach of consoles, although they tried to close the gap multiple times. I'm looking at you, Destiny. But for most of it, it still would be PC and console were very similar. Similar enough that this speaker decided to play an entire generation of games solely on a console known as a 360. When that happened, when you had consoles get close enough that for the most part, gameplay on one platform and another was indistinguishable unless you actually went to look at every minor detail, developers decided that it was better to code for the console first and foremost rather than the PC. There are two reasons for this. One is install base, player base, consumer base, if you will. And the second one is ease of programming. The first one seems rather baffling to anyone who has been on Steam because they can see that there are millions of users playing thousands of games. So clearly there's a PC market. Nobody's denying that. But when you have a PC, which is still a jack of all trades, the sheer number of machines out there, most of them were never really meant to play games at all, compared to all of the consoles, which each one of them was meant to be primarily a gaming platform. That means that if you need to sell, 5 to 10 million copies of your game, it is better to make sure that you go and sell them to the console players who, bought the consoles to, play games, rather than to chase elusive dreams of PC gamers that may or may not drop their MOBAs for, say, a minute or two to try your latest AAA release. The other one is technical. You see, and this happened, in fact, with the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox OC, and continued, hence the term lowest common denominator. They found out that if they were able to code to one machine, they could code for most of them. If they could code for the PlayStation 2 and it worked there was a good chance it also worked on the Xbox OC and in the average PC. If they coded for the 360, there was a good chance it would code for the PlayStation 3 and the PC. The PC is, by all accounts, a moving target when it comes to operational systems, when it comes to drivers, when it comes to hardware. That's why you have minimal requirements and suggested maximum requirements or optimal requirements. If you look at a box for a console game, there are no requirements. The only requirements is you have the right game format for the right machine. Xbox for Xbox, Sony for PlayStation, Nintendo for your Wii or your Wii U, or before that, GameCube. That's it. And it should work. Now, yes, we have the problem with the patching culture infecting the consoles, etc., etc. But for the most part, if you buy a game, it should work when you put it on the disc or you download it from the online service your console manufacturer provides. Easy peasy. Don't have to worry about updating the less NVIDIA drivers. Doesn't have to worry about whether you have AMD or something else. You don't have to worry about any of those things. You as a user don't have to worry about it, and so do the manufacturers, the developers. They just code for it and that's it. And also look at the pattern. The lowest common denominator is not necessarily the most powerful machine. The PlayStation 2 was inferior, stats-wise, to the Xbox OC, but because it had, for example, a large install base from the PlayStation 1 days, it was much easier to code for that than to try the new machine. If you played on the 360 side versus the PlayStation 3 was much harder to code for. But the 360 had a carryover from the Xbox Live, which meant that you already had a very large base of players that would play online multiplayer and were willing to pay for it, right? And also, again, was a much simpler machine that if it worked on the 360, it would work on the PlayStation, where the reverse is not true. Making a game on PC, optimized for PC, doesn't guarantee you that it will work as well as on the consoles. The other way around, usually it's the way it goes. So you start with the PC being the target you look forward to as the highest level, but your basement level, your lowest common denominator is or will be your console. As simple as that. And I think it will continue to be that way as long as consoles remain popular, which of course just leads to a lot of gnawing of teeth by the PC master race. That is the actual reality of having to make sure you sell as many games as possible. Doesn't mean that PC gaming is not popular, that services like Steam and GOG are making video games even more available to PC gamers, and that a lot of people are actually moving to PC, ironically, because consoles are becoming more PC-like by the moment. But that is the reality we're still living on. So it's more like they start at the console level and then, well, depending on budgets and needs, they get upgraded up to the level of the PC. If you happen to have a PC that can actually manifest set levels. If you don't, well, that's all for me for now. As always, please comment and subscribe, and I'll see you when I see you. Good night.